I think we're ready, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, it is 7:32 p.m. on Monday, May 5th. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the RTM Education Committee to order. I think our first item of business is just to introduce ourselves because we have a new member joining us, Sheila Quinn from District 3. So I think maybe we can just go around the table and just say, you know, our name, like we've done in the past, for our district and, our time in the community.
Happily. Mariana Gauthier. I have been on the RTM since 2020, I believe. Started with public health and safety, and then did Parks and Rec, and now here. And I just think it's a really, District 6. And I just think it's a really wonderful way to learn about the town and also help.
I'm Jan Raymond, and I've been on the RTM this time for, I think, 4 years. Before that, way before that, I was on the Board of Education for 6 years. And I've done a lot of other things around education over the years. So I'm a bit of an education junkie, and I enjoy being on this committee, and it's a good committee, and nice to be here.
I'm Ann King. I've been on the Education Committee for 2 years. I have 2 kids that went through the Darien public school system, and I think this is a great committee too.
Hi, Dan Coonan, District 4, in about 6 months. RTM, I got 3 kids in schools. I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
Hi, Peter Marushak. I've been on RTM since 2018. On this committee maybe since 2020. 2 boys in the school system.
I'm Ashley Guadagno, I'm District 5. I'm also new to RTM, and I have 2 elementary kids.
I'm Janet Fitzsimons, and I've been on the RTM for a very long time, and I went to Darien High School, and my 2 children went there also.
My name is Anna Roman. I'm transferred here in Darien from 1996. I'm specialized in early childhood education. My daughters, they came all the public schools here. So I started RTM District 5 just recently.
I'm Karen McNichol. I'm District 1. I think I've been in the RTM since about 2018. I'm not absolutely sure about that. And been on the Education Committee for that time, which is a very worthwhile thing. My children are grown up, although the 2 of them did go through the last few years in the high school. In the old building.
There we go.
A few more.
Sorry.
No, that's all great. Please, come on in. We just got started, and we're just introducing ourselves because we have Sheila Quinn, our newest member. And Sheila, why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll catch up with our last 2 members that are here.
Okay. I'm Sheila Quinn from District 3. I have a 9th grader, and then my older daughter graduated in 2022. And I got a lot of encouragement from a lot of people that joined the RTM, and thankfully I did, and I'm really happy to be on the Education Committee.
Awesome. We're glad you're here. All right. Stephanie, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Orosakis, District 4. 2 kids at Hindley. The first time RTMer, so happy to be on the Education Committee.
Thank you. Karen, just want to quickly introduce yourself.
Karen Knapp, 2 kids that go to private school. Substitute teacher for 20 plus years.
Awesome. Well, we're glad you're here. We're glad everyone's here. I'm Liza Lucas. I have 5 kids in the public schools, and I think that I joined when Karen and Peter did in 2018. I think that's right. Anyway, we're glad you're here. Welcome, and let's get started with our agenda because we have a few things on here tonight. Okay, first item, I'd like to make a motion to approve minutes from our March 10th, 2025 meeting. And seconds. Okay, all in favor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rusty.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, then the big item tonight is we're going to discuss the 25-26 Darien Public School budget, and we are going to vote on the operating budget and just discuss the capital budget. And hopefully you all received the attachments that I sent out yesterday that has the actual resolution for each item. I think we should start with it makes sense to start with the operating budget. I know we've been talking about this since January, and we're finally at the very end of this process here with the $125 million budget. So the way it works is we'll discuss and then we'll vote, and then I will report our vote on Monday, the 12th, to the full RTM. And so as we're discussing, if there are things that you think are important enough to be included in our motion on Monday, let me know as we're discussing. Or if that's not comfortable, you can email me after the meeting and let me know. But if anyone wants to jumpstart the conversation about the operating budget, please feel free to do so. Jan?
I just wanted to, for our new members, to understand that we cannot add anything to the budget, and the RTM cannot add anything to the budget either. We also cannot cut line items from the budget. If we want to make a cut, or the RTM wants to make a cut, it just has to be an amount. They can't say it has to come from phys ed or foreign language or anything like that. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I think that's important. And for, just to that end, this process started in January. For those of you who don't know, that with the superintendent's budget that was discussed, and then it became the Board of Education budget, and then they voted on it. I believe that was a unanimous vote by the Board of Education to pass that number. And then the Board of Finance voted, and I believe they were unanimous in that vote to support the full amount as well. So, but that's, I know we've discussed a lot of the different topics that has gone, through the process this year. But if there's anything else we should discuss tonight, let's let me know.
Can I just ask a procedural question? So the language that you have here, is this what you're looking to submit? So we have to vote on that language that you, in those?
So the Rules Committee puts this together.
Oh, okay.
And they sent this to me because, in fact, as this is my first year as chair, and I wasn't exactly sure how the fine points went. So I reached out and they put together the resolutions.
I see.
So it's very simple. I don't even have to waive the reading, I think, because I'm going to read it verbatim. So,
Okay.
But if I may.
Yeah.
This is procedural, right? I mean,
Yeah.
let me just say a couple things on the budget, just very quickly.
Of course.
I appreciate that the Board of Finance took it as it stood. They realized that there's, third of the budget that's sort of out of district's control. That the Board of Education administration really tried and be efficient, with our tax dollars, and with special education and transportation and healthcare. There was really nowhere else to cut. I thought despite their initial guidance of 3 to 4%, we ended up at 5% or 4.9. I think that's a good outcome, and it shows the flexibility of Board of Finance. So I just wanted to acknowledge it. And as far as this resolution, I just looked at it. I think we were voting on only the D, right? We're only voting on the
Correct. That's right.
And
Exactly.
as far as the capital, we were voting just a subset of the 6.1 million, right?
So I had the same question,
Yeah.
and in fact, I don't think we will be voting on capital because we don't know, because it's commingled with the town capital funds. We can't just vote separately on our $1.3 million education capital funds. I did reach out to Jack to say, I'm just a point of order. Are we voting for the capital appropriation, or we're second on that motion next Monday? So I think we would need to discuss the items that that are on the capital budget for education, but I don't think we can actually vote. This is my opinion. Please, anyone chime in if you think I'm wrong here, but I don't know what the 5 million and change items are for the town, so I don't think we can make a vote for that full appropriation is my
I think historically, if you ask me, I think it was done right, that we voted on the Board of Education, the 1.3 million only. I mean, the vote here is really non-binding, right? I can change my mind and vote differently, but this is a recommendation to the, 90 other people sitting there, right?
So Jack will be primary on
Yeah.
capital, so he'll give the full, and then we will be second. So I don't, again,
Yeah.
I mean, we could definitely make, I'm trying to think, because I don't know formally, I don't think we can vote on it, on a part of it.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's form over substance at the end of the day, right?
It is,
You know,
it
so
is,
it's-
yeah. I mean, I think if there's anyone, when we start talking about capital, if there's anyone who thinks that we have a problem, that's something that I will definitely bring up when I give my comments about our committee and our thoughts on the capital budget. But, yeah, I don't know that we can make a formal vote based on
Got it.
the fact that it's commingled here.
And just one more thing on the budget is, I really like the way you presented, our opinion last time for the
Thanks.
Board of Finance, so I think we started that as a.
Yeah.
uh,
I want to make it very just straightforward and matter of fact and talk very specifically about the numbers and how they compare to what the district spent last year.
Yeah.
And I have no plan to editorialize anything.
Yeah.
I have no interest in doing that. That's not what the RTM is for. But I do think if there's anything else, again, not to put any sort of personal point of view on it, but if there's something that, as a committee, I know we've talked a lot about certain things time and again. Usually, it's something that wouldn't, I think, be appropriate for the appropriation, like in our, when we move it on Monday.
So on that, I am for, and I guess we'll vote on it, so I'm for the 4.92, but I don't think that long-term this is a sustainable number, at least for me. 5% is more than I would like to do, especially, especially if the inflation really comes down to 3. I mean, the really big point is gonna be when there is a negotiation of the union contract.
Yeah.
But I do think that what I would like to do after we vote on it is, maybe it's the June meeting, maybe it's the first fall meeting, is to understand a couple of these big items, big buckets that I had problems with, right? Or not problems, but I wanted to understand better, right? And there is two especially. One is the special education.
Yeah.
And I know it's a little bit in flux right now, so
Yeah.
maybe it's worth to wait till the fall, because I remember it was Mrs. Mera, right, our representative in Hartford, she said that there is a new, right, they have a new budget, and it could change dramatically the way they're gonna allocate the funds for it.
Yeah.
But that's something that's been running away, and obviously not only us, but a lot of districts. And the second thing is the whole curriculum, and it's just a little bit my pet peeve, so at some point I would like to understand it better, and that may make sense to do after we have a new superintendent as well.
When you say the whole curriculum, what does that mean?
Well, so when I look at the budget, there's about 40 people who are either under curriculum supervision or curriculum support. There's about $6 million that these folks spend. They do a lot of useful stuff, but I just don't understand. It's unclear to me exactly what they do. I have a feeling from listening to it for a couple of years is that part of it is sort of like an internal think tank that we help the teachers to teach. And that's expensive, I think. And the question is it a fundamental philosophy, is it the right philosophy to run a district? Or should we spend the money on, teacher development more than?
So you're not talking about curriculum, you're talking about staffing that is involved, you're not talking about what is taught.
No, not curriculum specifically. I mean, I don't understand enough, right? I know we have curriculum subcommittee, but we have expense items of writing curriculum every year and all that. And I know Board of Education look at that and maybe they understand better. I just don't. So it'd be helpful to actually have the person here who runs it, maybe somebody from Board of Education, maybe Sarah Perrin who is in the subcommittee, and just have a conversation with them about, so not every year I raise my hand and said 6 million seems a lot to do this.
Well, we did discuss that a lot at the Board of Ed meeting this time. I thought they explained it well, but,
I'll listen to it again.
Yeah, we can
I'll not
always
waste
get,
anybody's time.
yeah, we can always get
Yeah.
a better understanding.
Yeah. But, it's 4.9% for education, it's over 3% for town, it's, you know, the debt, there's much more debt in town, so the taxes should be up 6.2%, you know, we're taking some money out of the capital fund, so it's gonna be 5.5%, I think that's where Jack is gonna present it, but, you know, 5.5%, it's, taxes double over 12 years, right? So whatever you pay now and by the time your kids graduated, you know, some years it's gonna be double, and it's a lot of money. And maybe this is what it costs to do it.
Do we know what comparatively we are to New Canaan?
Yes, we do. We're right in line in terms of what we're spending. I think, actually, I can tell you exactly. Hold on one second. And our price per pupil is also in line. Let's see, let me give you
Like specifically for special education and those?
Yeah, but special education is different, we're spending,
We spend more,
we get
right?
more kids in the program, 5% more kids in the
Right.
program. Maybe
And
that's
we
a
were
good thing.
questioning that last time, I think, right? Wondering why.
Right.
Yeah.
New Canaan is almost 4.7 this year for their
Yeah,
budget.
okay,
And their big driver was health insurance.
okay.
Do you have some other comments?
Ridgefield this year is 4.2. They were 4.8 last year. Wilton's 4.0 last year, this year. Weston was 4.75 last year. They're 3 this year, a little over 3.
Wow.
Westport is 4.7. They were the year before, 4.69. Easton is spent 7.59 last year, and they're 6.72 this year, and their driver is special ed. What did I say? Reading was 5.5 last year, and it's 4.19 this year, and their driver is also special education. The average for the DERG is 4.56 for the, this year. I was a little over 5 average last year. Oh no, hold on, that's superintendent's budget, that's not year end. Those first numbers were superintendent, so all in, the average for the DERG is 4.56. So, yeah, the first numbers, I was reading that from, I thought it was the other graph. That was, the first numbers I was saying, that wasn't last year, that was the superintendent's adjusted budget, and then the second number was the approved budget. My bad. But yeah, Easton's the highest at 6.7, and we're second at 4.92. But we're followed closely behind, by Westport and New Canaan and everybody, so.
And then curriculum, just to go to because you were talking about the curriculum budget, what do we know what theirs is? What their curriculum people get?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I
okay.
have no idea.
It's somewhere probably, but, it's also the scope of functions could be
Right.
different, so it's.
Yeah,
difficult to
yeah,
compare.
right, just trying to understand
Right.
why things are a certain number.
I'm just looking at that. Dan, your hand, did you want to?
Yeah, I mean, this seems like a bit of fait accompli. This is a black and white vote where you say yes or no, right?
Yeah.
There's no other.
Yeah.
But every time, for all the meetings I've been to, I'm trying to understand what the process. It seems like this is the same movie that plays out every year. Right? So is there anything codified in terms of like how this works? And you know what I mean? Or any value to doing something like that? And does it make sense?
You're brand new and you say that.
Right.
No, I'm making an assumption just based on listening to you that this
Yeah.
process is pretty similar every year, right? Yeah.
Because, last year was interesting because after the Board of Education approved their budget, the Board of Finance cut it by $2 million. So then they had to go back. And then as a committee, as the RTM, we had to vote on the budget $2 million less, which was a little bit of like, hold your nose and vote for some members, because we couldn't add it back in. We don't have the power to do that.
Yeah.
And then we're essentially voting before we saw what the Board of Education was going to do with the final number, because it was $2 million less than what their final budget was, and we didn't know how they were going to rearrange things.
Yeah.
So that was a challenging budget year.
Yeah.
And I think one thing we've talked about a lot, I know, Peter's brought up, the process before, and I agree with him that it's really difficult to go through this process and get to the end and know that, you know, if our committee or the RTM, you know, on our recommendation did not vote to approve the budget, it's not like they go back to the
Right,
bargaining
yeah.
table and redo it. They get the budget that was 4.92% less from last year. I know, so it's really, we're in a really tough spot in
Can I
terms
ask a
of,
question?
yeah.
Because that was always our assumption, and I think one of these last meetings, somebody, maybe it was Jack sitting
It was,
here, I wasn't clear 100% that it's true. It's actually a third thing that I wanted to do sometime within the next, 10 minutes is to actually have the town council here.
Wayne Fox.
I agree.
maybe-
I would
maybe
like
figure
a
it out,
firm
you know.
answer on
Yep.
that too.
I wasn't sure that, what did you want?
I agree.
We
Totally
we
with
asked,
that.
when
Yeah.
Jack was here visiting, we kind of asked that question, and not in more in a curiosity way, right? Saying like,
About what do we do
Yeah.
if we don't want to, if we want to
Approve.
vote the budget, not because we want to reduce it, but because we think it should be, like, in the set of facts that happened last year, let's assume, and it is an assumption, that our committee would have preferred the 2 million not have been cut. You know, if we were to recommend the vote, a no vote, what would be the options at that point? We've been told and we've been counseled by, the leaders of, our committees and, by Board of Ed, and folks we've spoken to, that the option is the budget then reverts to last year's budget. There's not a renegotiation, there's not a revisit to, add in or rediscuss, it's just, that's it, that's the end of the process. So I think we were discussing, it was the last meeting or the meeting before, where does it say though, what's the, is that actually the set of facts of what would happen?
So it's never been like from your history, like.
So
you've
when
never-
Clara Sartori was the chair, and she had done it for, I think, a good bit, and had also, like Jan, been on the Board of Ed, she told me she didn't know of a time when it had been voted down
Okay.
for that reason.
So we have a voice, not a vote, but a voice can be very effective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
and the suggestion was, right, to have the buddy meeting with finance and budget that was overdue, and then just kind of start that stuff, to Peter's point, like earlier in the process,
I
like in
think so.
September, kind of just, and not even for like to answer our questions, but like let's connect before the budget is in front of us, and kind of start these conversations so that we can work, with overlap as opposed to in parallel.
I agree, and I think it could also make the process more efficient. I think if
Agreed.
someone had said to our committee, or to even like CDSP or some other, what do you think about cutting the IDEA program? I think there would have been an immediate counsel by most folks to say, don't do that, and it would have saved them how many meetings and how much time,
Yeah.
how many, like that was a lengthy process.
Great.
And
So-
successful.
And successful, yeah. So, I think that would be efficient in some ways, so. All right, well, is there anything else we should talk about with respect to the operating budget before we vote? No? Okay, so I will make a motion to approve, it's going to be, the appropriation is 25-14D, an appropriation of $125,760,223 is hereby made in the general fund for the Board of Education operating budget. So I'll make that motion, and would anyone like to second? Jan?
Again.
Okay, all in favor of this resolution, please raise your hand. Tell me when you're good.
Okay.
Is it unanimous? Okay. Any no votes? Anyone to abstain? Okay. Thank you. That is approved. And then the next thing we're going to do is just discuss the capital budget, which I'm gonna get my other screen out. the resolution that's going to be moved by Jack next week is 25-14B, and it discusses an appropriation of $6,180,250, and that's for capital and non-recurring expenditures for meeting the expense of the town of Darien. However, of that, I believe it's $1,339,150, so a much smaller chunk is for the Board of Education capital improvement projects. That is for about $687,000 is at Darien High School for LED lighting fixture upgrades, resurfacing blacktop, waterproofing the roof, replacing doors. It's about $38,000 at Middlesex for a school radio replacement. They're going to pave the Tokenique bus loop and enhance some security features. And then district-wide, they're going to replace some windows, some sidewalks. They're replacing a 2012 truck and a 2015 Suburban. They're getting a new lawnmower and a custodial floor scrubber. Those are the highlights for the $1,339,000. So I think, we should just discuss it briefly so that when I second this motion next week, if we have any support or lack thereof, I can report that.
Well, I think on the tour, I went on the tour, I don't know who else went on the tour, I don't even know what month it was, but the things that they showed us on the tour, the safety features at Tokenique, the driveway at Tokenique, talking about the roof at the high school, there wasn't anything that they said that I saw that I thought, wait a minute, why do we have to do that now? We'd already put off the Tokenique bus loop for 1 year, and it hadn't gotten any better from last year to this year. So that's just comment.
Thank you.
Nothing sounds excessive on that list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I think it's fair to say we're in support of the capital budget that we've discussed today. Okay. All right, so then let's, I think we can go ahead and move on from the budget items. And next up, Ashley, if you don't mind, Ashley was kind enough, along with to attend the HHR tour on April 24th, and so thank you, first of all, because I know that took a good bit of time. If you can give us just a quick update on what your thoughts are.
Importantly, it's on time and on budget.
There you go.
The new portions of all 3 schools that are being built right now will be able to be moved into for the fall, including the security, the new front door at Holmes, all the classrooms, the global learning centers at Royle and Hindley, and the outdoor classrooms. I think, in my own personal opinion, that if you look at all 3, Royle seems to be the one that maybe looks like the least amount of progress, but that's because they haven't yet been able to take away the portables. And so when they had like roof things to do first and whatever. So when they move into the new part of the building that's being built, then they'll be able to take those portables away. There's some very fancy and cute tile that they're all very excited about. At all 3 schools, they pointed out these tiles in the bathrooms, even though they're identical at all 3. Yeah, it was sweet. At Holmes, they had a sample of like the cubby cabinets to see what the color would be. All the accent walls will be yellow. There's lots of windows in all these spaces, so lots of natural light, like even with no lighting at all in any of these places, it was very well lit and just kind of nice to be in terms of the atmosphere and the ambiance. That's about it, really. The music room, my principal, Miss Blakely, was really just ecstatic over having a place to put risers. So they don't have to be stored on the stage, and it's just like heartwarming, the things teachers get excited over, and that will be a great addition to our school too. But yeah, it was good.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's on
Everyone's
time.
pumped to be on the tour, yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Anyone else have questions? No? Thank you again. I really appreciate it. Okay.
Oh, one other thing,
Okay.
very important stuff that is boring, that you can't see. All the mechanicals, all the HVAC, and most importantly, flood mitigation at all 3 schools is in place and like ready to go, which is great considering the weather.
I know that the water, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, great, awesome, thank you. All right, next. We're going to have a discussion about the Darien High School device policy.
Yes.
And we have a visitor.
Yes, the
which
Darien.
I'm gonna let Mary know.
I'm sure, I'll take it away. Like I said, tonight you get Mary Nevin and Mary Connell. So I've been lucky enough to work with Mary Connell with the Away for the Day initiatives that she's really spearheaded and done some really beautiful work on in town. So I just wanted to introduce her, and I'm gonna let her run the show, and I'll kind of jump in here and there because I've been lucky enough to help and work on these efforts. But the Away for the Day group has basically been working on policy implementation in K through 8 thus far, about just ways that we can be, as we like to use it at my school, safe, kind, and responsible when it comes to tech usage. And they've also been working on getting a policy in at the high school. So with the superintendent transition happening, I know there's been even outside of the advocacy work that I do just among parents, there's just been a growing interest in making sure that we have a responsible policy in place when it comes to how students utilize their devices, while of course supporting what each family chooses to do in their home, but we want to make sure what's done at school is for the best, keeps the students' mental health in mind and a harmonious school day. So we just wanted to come and talk to you guys a little bit about the work being done there so that you're aware of it, should you be asked, or should you have any questions for us, and then just make sure that all the work that Mary Connell and her group have been doing kind of stays consistent as we go through administration change. So with that, I'll let her
That's
begin.
a great intro, thank you. So I'm Mary Connell Lifton, and I appreciate you letting me take a few minutes of your time. Thank you for the work that you're doing. And when Mary Nevin made the suggestion, I've spent a lot of time in front of the school board. I've spent a lot of time with Dr. Addley. I've spent a lot of time with various principals, but I think it's really nice to be able to share with you all, and certainly to the extent that you're able to, as Mary Nevin said, with your constituents, be aware of what's going on, but also I'm gonna maybe lean on you all for maybe a letter of support. So I'll come to that in a minute, but it's a great intro, Away for the Day. I got started kind of pre-COVID. I've got a 6th grader and a 9th grader. So before we were there with devices, I tried to get involved in kind of an okay to delay program in town, and it was long before Jonathan Haidt had become a superstar, and there just was not an appetite. We could not get anything off the ground, and then COVID hit, and everyone got busy, and all the kids went on screens. And Megan Shane, who couldn't be here tonight, she's kind of the spearhead of the OK to Delay group, which there's a lot of obviously synchronicity with the Away for the Day, but she's very focused on elementary school and middle school parents of younger children who are kind of making a decision about when to give their children devices. And coming out of COVID, and as the literature and Jonathan Haidt and Jean Twenge were writing so much, and the issue was impossible to ignore, I started getting involved in, we've got to get these devices out of schools. And so last summer, we spent some time trying to advocate with the board just through letters, didn't get anywhere. And last summer, we put out a townwide survey that was responded to by over 700 families in town, representing close to 1,500 students. And we got a lot of people to come and speak at the Board of Ed meeting last summer when they did like a big workshop, all-day workshop. And we had teachers, we had students, we had parents. And I think I would like to think our advocacy, but I think also the national conversation was obviously really moving at that time period. And so Dr. Addley leaned on Tim McGuire, who's the director, he's the district-wide director of instructional technology. A little side note, I do not think that that role is empowered enough. I think that given how important technology is and how kind of ed tech in general is probably the next conversation after we get these devices out, I think that's probably a role that should be given more prominence. Like we should have someone at a higher level that's in charge of technology and people below him. Like this guy's overwhelmed. But we worked together and implemented a policy this fall, which you all are probably aware of at the elementary schools and the middle school. And just a little feedback, I think the policies have been a resounding success. I think that the without having to spend a dime, which makes everyone happy, the parents of elementary students, for anyone that has elementary, know the policy is do not bring devices to school, smart devices. So that includes watches, which we had kids calling 911 from their watches on a regular basis in elementary school, all kinds of distractions, buzzing, beeping. And the anecdotal report is that it's largely gone away at the elementary schools. I think another kind of recommendation, and it's not necessarily for you to implement, but it's things that we need to work on, is kind of better data collection. Like I think we need to see from the principals how many devices are getting confiscated, what's the, are the parents complaining? So I think there needs to be more self-assessment. But anecdotally, the response has been very positive at the elementary school. And again, to give Meg and Shane a pat on the back, I think that works really well with the okay to delay. I think what we'd like to see in terms of what can be better would be better communication, better interaction from the community education, keeping families educated about how dangerous these devices are, so that we can continue to improve. Same thing in the middle school. I think the policy's been largely successful. They are told they can bring devices, but they have to stay in their lockers. And so there's definitely some shenanigans, kids going in the bathroom, checking their phones, etc. But overall, I think it's working, and I would give a big thumbs up to the middle school principal. Kate Demulus has done a wonderful job with her messaging. It's been very positive. We're doing this for you. Let's get those phones put away. Let's get ready to learn. It's not seen as punitive, and so I think that's extremely helpful, and I think the policy has been working really well. So we were a little disappointed that they didn't feel like they could tackle this at the high school in the fall. They've been doing a lot of work, a lot of task force, asking students what they think. It's kind of like asking kids what do they want to eat for dinner, like I'll have cotton candy, but that's a little editorializing. But as you're also probably aware, at the January Board of Ed meeting, the high school principal, Alan Dunn, and Tim McGuire committed to implementing a policy that would go into effect at the high school in the fall, this coming up fall. So the task force is continuing to work. They're going and visiting the school district at Wilton that's implemented pouches, for example. And I think right now, given that there are no lockers at the high school, which is astounding, there's a million different entrances, the logistic, and I think principally also high school kids are just wilier. Like we're going to have to lock them up. They're going to have to be in pouches. The good news is I think this is already, it's not going to be a budget constraint. They're, in the scheme of things, these pouches are not expensive, and we understand that money has basically already been set aside to cover that cost. And so I think they're working on the rollout, the logistics at the high school. The one thing that I think is notable, and I may need to write another editorial if it did not come to their senses, is the high school principal for some reason would like to break ground and be the only school in the entire country that has an exemption for seniors and tries to have like a two-tiered policy. I think it's going to lead to frustration. I think the logistics are going to be terrible. I think these seniors already have plenty of freedom. They can drive to school, they can leave school, they can play Assassins all spring. They're fine. Like, we don't need to give them anything else, and I think it's just going to create a policy that is completely untenable. And again, when I pushed back and I said, what data are you looking at? Like, what model are you following? None. Like, no one else has ever done this. So this strikes me as something that's got to be implemented correctly. But I think if they can kind of look to the success of the K-8 policy, positive messaging, there's been some student education. We brought in a speaker in the fall, this guy, Max Stossel, who's of national fame kind of on this particular issue. It was really moving. The students and the faculty really responded well. There's been other events. But again, in terms of what kind of support we can give, I think that always looking for opportunities for education and community support of the issue. So it's speakers, it's focus groups. I think we need to audit, kind of see where the successes are. And I think that in your intro about the transition of superintendents, I think what would be really useful is, and I don't know, I mean, if it would be of interest to you all, perhaps on behalf of the committee, to send a letter to Dr. Addley, thank you for your service, here's what's gone well, this is what, you know, and kind of, this would be his legacy, this policy, that Darien kind of came to their senses under your leadership. You know, we're trusting you to shepherd this through at the high school. And then likewise, a letter maybe to the incoming superintendent to say, this is what Darien cares about in terms of education, and obviously list all the other things you guys are working on, but it would be great to include a focus on technology and you know, the devices, getting the devices out is really step one. As I said, like that is a foregone conclusion. Like everyone knows you have to get devices out of the schools. Like no one's debating this anymore. I think the debate has already moved on to, are they spending too much time on laptops? And do we need to think about, you know, to your point about curriculum, do we need to think about the way technology, more thoughtfully about the way technology is integrated into curriculum? Making sure they're prepared for the world, but are we also diminishing their learning? And there's a lot of science kind of showing that all this time on screens is terrible, et cetera. So, you know, maybe outlining your thoughts, your goals for an incoming superintendent. And then I think, you know, this has been a little bit of a hot potato with the Board of Education. Them kind of saying this is really the administration's job to create the policy, and then the administration saying, oh, we can't do it unless the board's supportive. And so I think just continuing to keep pressure on the board that this is a priority in town. We know that from the survey. And again, you know, if people start asking about, well, what's the data? What are other people doing? Just remember that no one looked at any data before we allowed mini supercomputers with cameras and recording devices into our schools, in our children's hands. Like, no one ever looked and said, I wonder if this is going to be okay. So it frustrates me to no end that people start asking for data about getting rid of them, because no one ever asked about, is this okay? So I appreciate you all giving me the time to talk about it. Obviously appreciate your support, and you know, to the extent that this is something that your constituents are interested in. I think it is. A lot of, you know, as I said, we got a lot of positive response. And just to make you aware that this is something that we're going to continue to work on in the schools, especially at the high school, and it's a big issue for the incoming superintendent.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just, mine is very rudimentary. I
Yeah.
was just wondering with the pouches,
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
something that you carry with you?
Yeah.
Where does that go? Do the kids have a device near them, or like?
So, and there's a lot of data about the device being in the room, being half as distracting as the device itself. I'm not an expert on how the logistics, and I will say, maybe too many opinions, but was not asked to be a member of this task force, so I've not kind of participated in that. But my understanding is because they don't have lockers, and the logistics of kind of some sort of phone storage bin, and not because it's like, so you have to walk 15 minutes across a campus if you needed to store your phone, and then to get to your next class, you know, whatever, at the end of the day. I still think that could work, but again, overruled. The pouches, so they are magnetically locked, and you keep them with you. So the idea is they would stay in the backpack, and I'm not also really good at science or anything, so I don't know what of work. Like, you get a code, or they like take the magnet off
No,
or something?
there's like a person
Thank you.
that kind of like when you buy something at a store, they have the central thing and that unlocks it. Like if you've ever done that
But it
at a
has to be done
concert or
manually
something.
for each
Yeah.
kid on the way in and out?
Yes.
No way.
Well, we do it
That's
at my daughter's high school.
They do?
Yeah,
We've
how
been
does it
doing
work?
this for, we've been doing this for
A while,
a couple
yeah.
of years,
Mhm.
right? So I mean, private school, it's a lot easier to implement, and we have a group called TechWise Tigers that I'm involved in.
Okay.
That's
Unless it's
very-
Greenwich Academy, in which case.
It's Greenwich
it's a
Country Day School.
Free for all at
Now
Greenwich
it's Greenwich
Academy.
Country Day School, and they're very strict about this. And they have the pouches, and they have to check it in with their advisor, and they don't get it back till the end of the day. And everyone was like, oh, I don't know, but they did it, they tried it a couple of years ago for a day, and everybody said, this is amazing. And also as a substitute teacher, when I was there, that's all the kids do, so, you know, so they implemented this and very successfully. And so the kids know they have to go into their advisor, they check in with the advisor, they can only get it back at the end of the day. If you need to get in touch with your child, you email your child, and it works. I've done it for a couple of years, and you know, my
You
daughter
don't
was
have like a
18.
line to get into the school then?
Well, so that's the, I
That's
mean,
one
obviously,
way to
the
go.
size of the
Yeah,
school
that's
is,
crazy.
is one of the issues, and
Of
I
course.
think why Wilton, they do have them in their backpacks rather
Yeah.
than checked in someplace, so I think, but the fact that it has to be
It's approved to
manually.
campus, but you know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's you know,
Yeah, I think,
whatever,
so I
but-
think these are the kind of logistics that they're still trying to roll
Yeah.
out, but obviously, big schools, small schools, our peer schools have already implemented these pouches, so it's absolutely doable. And they've had a
And they've
year
surveyed the
to work on
kids,
it.
Yeah.
just to tell you, they've surveyed the students, and the students like it because they said it takes away the background noise.
Yeah,
They all
sure.
have been very, very positive about this, and nobody's asked to have it back again.
Yeah.
So it's just.
Well, and that's
been-
national. No school has
Yes.
ever implemented a policy and they've said, oh, it was better before.
Yeah.
Like, that has
But, and
never
I mean, even in the
happened.
middle school, they're not allowed to have them, but they've also, talking about laptops, they've put these programs, again, it's easier to do in a private school, but they put these programs on that we have that block all of you, like I've blocked so many things for my son because he's
So
in middle
I've
school.
also spent time, I mean,
Custodial.
we're getting into more, I don't
Sorry,
wanna
I
take
know.
all your
Get
time,
into
but
the
I mean, I can talk about it for hours.
nitty-gritty.
But there's a guy, Jeff Adams, who runs the, like the technical side of the technology. And I had to go to him, cause all the middle school girls were online shopping. I would get links multiple times a day, like, Mom, can I get this on sale at Lululemon? And I was like,
Oh my
are you in school? On their Chromebooks, which have Go Guardian, but I was like, Jeff, I'm not a tech guy, but like, everybody's online shopping, and the anecdotes from the high school is they're all gambling. They're all gambling on their laptops.
And they're
Yes.
watching movies.
And I was like, I asked my IT guy, because I don't know about it, but like, apparently there's content filters, and he was like, oh, I'm gonna have to get back to you. And then 2 weeks later, my daughter was like, we can't shop anymore. And I was like, you're welcome. I mean, but somebody has to stay on top of
Yeah.
this, and you have to have technology people
Ours is
who
even
are
as a parent,
savvy,
you
and
can go
Yeah.
in and you can set it, it's Custodio is the name of the program.
there's a million of them.
Yeah,
Like, there's
there
a
are.
million
This
of
is
these
what we
content,
use,
yeah,
and it's the
blockers.
same, because my son likes a stupid Roblox game that he's like, I'm like, you're 14, dude, really, seriously? But I've like cut it off, so even at home, he has no access
Yeah,
to it at
right.
all. And he's like, you shut me down, I'm like, sorry. you
But
know.
then, but it's like, it requires constant vigilance, because then I had to go back to Jeff Adams and say, turns out, you name it, North Koreans, Chinese, whoever's trying to take over our youth minds, that they'll have websites that are called like history,
Yes, I know.
historyforfun.com, and it's really just video games.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and it gets through the content
Yeah.
blocker. So my point being that like, there have to be adults in charge of the technology, and it has to be constant
Yeah.
vigilance.
I mean, I get emails every day, this is what was going on, so this is
Yeah.
what was, you know, and, yeah, I know, it's.
So they're
it's
working
cat
on the
and mouse, I get
logistics,
it.
it's cat and mouse, and they're working on the logistics, but I think the things that need, I mean, DHS has gotta get the policy in place, they've got, with the pouches. I do think that this director of instructional technology, there needs to be and I mean, here we are talking about a tight budget, but whether it's elevating his position, but just making sure that the role of adults who are on top of the technology. And thinking thoughtfully about like, where's the district gonna go with AI? Where's the district gonna go? Like, all of this, kind of how technology fits in with the curriculum.
I think a lot of the adults at the high school don't know anything about what the kids are doing, because they're not hooked in. And I think if you're gonna police it, then you gotta know what you're policing, and they don't.
And I think okay to delay helps here, right? And I think there's a lot of momentum. Like I know in the elementary school, there's reps, it's like 700 students so far, and that was just an initial thing. So I do hope, I think there's the part where it's like, how do we think of technology as a tool and how are we thinking about it thoughtfully? But then I think the community advocacy, it's not just ban all devices, it's like, and then what do we do from the mental health perspective, from the community building perspective, that I think is gonna make it effective. And I think that's always been a part of it, in terms of the advocacy work that I've observed, and I think that's essential to making it work, right? Otherwise it's just a problem, no actual solution beyond that. So
Right.
I think that's really important too.
And I think it is a good way to kind of close out the conversation is the emphasis on mental health, which is obviously a big deal in Darien, but just to reiterate, banning the smart devices is the cheapest, easiest, fastest way to see an improvement in mental health. And I'm sure the exit surveys, in any of these schools that have implemented these devices, these kids are happier, there's more social interaction, and it's critical that the device is not just it's not just classroom time.
Yeah.
The almost just as important is this time between classes where kids are, passing each other in the hallway, the lunchroom, all this downtime. So it's really critical that it's a bell to bell policy, beginning of the day to the end of the day. But the outcome for absolutely no investment, just positive message, this is this is good for you, this is good, to get rid of these devices is absolutely, at every school that's done this, has seen improvements in children's happiness, mental health. So it's a complete win-win.
I have a question. How much do the pouches cost?
I feel like I've seen data, it's somewhere between maybe $50 a pouch, something like that. It's not nothing, but I think that I don't know how many students we have at the high school.
1,500.
1,500. So it's a number that the chairman of chairman of Beth Lane, parent. What is, do you know Beth? Anyway.
District 3.
Darien Association said that there's a pocket of money that is available to cover this. It's not an expense that needs to come out of the district budget. The cost of those pouches is already
We analyze the budgets.
Can I plug also, OK to Delay is doing a alternative device fair on Thursday.
Yes.
I am an OK to Delay rep at Hindley.
We love that.
And it's alternative devices, basically no iPhone, no internet access phone or watch, that they're having representatives come and show parents and kids the alternatives to an iPhone or an Apple Watch. So I encourage you to tell your community members to come. It's at the Depot from 4 to 6, anytime.
And I think that's exactly the point, is that kind of education, community education, we're gonna reap the dividends of that down the road as young families with younger kids, as their kids grow up, and I sent out an email when my daughter was in 5th grade, let's not get phones, and everyone's like, yeah, and then they all got phones. But if the community gets educated, those classes are gonna grow up, and this is gonna get easier and easier for the teachers. There's gonna be less, confiscating of devices, because we're just all gonna be better.
I have a question to ask, and I may be the only person in the room that doesn't know it, but I have no idea what OK to Delay is.
So it's just kind of a sister organization to this Away for the Day. We're kind of loosely
I don't know what
affiliated.
that is either.
But they're these loosely affiliated
Didn't
groups.
get the title.
Oh, actually,
phones.
so Away for the
They
Day,
have their
correct me if I'm wrong.
computers, and they have full access to everything on the computer. That's the thing. They're all on Snapchat on their computer, and they're watching movies.
Okay, well, that's Jeff Adams' problem.
Yeah.
And I've had one meeting with them, and I'll have to go back and be like, they're
But the
still on
difference-
Snap. I mean, that is all
Yeah.
supposed to be through content
But
filter.
the question
That
is,
supposed to- and you
Away
can
for the Day is
ban
more like school
texting.
policy. Let's look at school policies and what they're doing in the school for Away for the Day. And then OK to Delay is parent advocacy, let's all talk and connect about how we use these devices. Not like, let's look at how social media impacts children's brains and discuss, like, what I really like about the group, because I'm on it with Stephanie as well, is it's not like if you give your kid a phone in 6th grade, you're not banned from coming in. This is more like the strong recommendation is to delay a phone and social media until at least 16 years old, kind of based on that book, The Anxious Generation. But it's also made as a group for, like, this is here to stay. Technology is here, and let's all, rather than condemn, because they were finding with like wait till 8th, which was a big movement where like me as a kindergarten mom would say, no phones for my kids, and then 8th grade would come, and like many things in parenting, you have the idea of it, and then you have the experience of it, right? Yes. And so people were finding that wait till 8th was kind of binary in terms of people would sign it and then they'd be kind of ashamed or just disengage entirely when a device of any kind entered their home. And so, not to misspeak for Megan and her work that she's doing, so Stephanie, please course correct me, but it's much more like, here's the research, here's the data. We don't want to figure this out alone or be the only person on the island who's not letting our kid have an iPad and feel like they're socially ostracized. Let's connect. Like, I had a friend in the group who was saying she reconnected her landline and taught her 4th grader how to call a parent for a play date. So it's more, a way for the day is more like, let's hone in on school policy, let's learn from other schools, let's get to work, let's strategize, and then okay to delay, like I said, overlaps with it a lot in terms of like, hey, like these are here to stay. How can we all help each other, respect each other, not police what anybody does at home, but understand that this is a much easier thing to conquer and figure out for ourselves if we work collectively. Sorry for my stump speech, but that's it.
No, I appreciate it.
It is. Okay to delay is local.
It's pretty local, it's like starting in Greenwich, I think.
But away from the day is bigger.
Yeah. But wait till 8th is national.
Yeah.
Wait till 8th is a national program that people sign.
I think it's good that we on the committee learn about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
it's,
sure.
I need the help just as much as my kids.
Yeah.
I'll say it on camera. It's like, it's an interesting thing to figure out. And so, and I think it's kind of existed in these pockets where people understand it as, those people that have no devices. And it's like, no, we're all, everybody's kind of on a sliding scale, but are trying to figure out how to do this in a way where, again, respect the 4 walls of the family home, but also really look at how we work together in schools and these spaces. So.
Quick question, just thank you for this. This is wonderful. I love it. But what's the, other than implementing and the logistics, what's the strongest argument that you've heard from the folks that seems like we're slow playing?
What was this?
I think
So I was saying, was the strong contra argument against doing it in high school, doing it as soon as we can?
So I think the resistance at the high school, the logistics are difficult, without a question. And I think there's just so many issues to tackle. I think the principal, frankly, felt maybe a little overwhelmed. Like, there's underage drinking, there's all kinds of things. Like, you can pick your issue that you want to focus on. So I don't think it was as much a priority for her in particular. I think the elementary principals and the middle school principal were on board. It was kind of a no-brainer for them, like the 911 calls and the elementary. The wheels were off, and that felt kind of easier to tackle. I think the logistics of the high school are really hard, and one of the things, I didn't get to it, but one of the things that's particularly complicating, to your point, is the bring your own device. So I think if we had Chromebooks, it's easier to implement these like Go Guardian, like very locked down things. It is also quite possible with a competent technology person to do it on BYO. So that is something that I'm also working on. It's possible, but that was a complicating factor, was the BYO devices at the high school. And then I think just the campus setup, and then it just was not a big priority for the principal. And then for whatever reason, her desire to like exempt the seniors, which makes zero sense. And so then that was a lot of back and forth. Like, it just.
Is she the decision maker, or is like the superintendent, like who?
So the superintendent kind of deferred to her. That's the problem. And is kind of, I need Ellen on board, and she was never willing to get on board. So she really slow rolled it. I think the principal, when he was ready to roll out the policy, she just wasn't there. So yes, this is kind of at the feet of Ellen Dunn.
Is there anyone else is there anyone above her that
Well, the new
push for it. I mean,
superintendent is, it would be who
that's
she
the
would
boss,
answer to.
right? I mean,
Yes,
so-
Can
so
I
that,
remind people that there's going to be an interim superintendent for a long time?
We don't know who this person is yet though, right?
No.
I know that there's,
It can be
there's,
months,
yeah.
year.
But
Someone
now
wants
it's,
to take the job.
but now this is done as agreed and it's in process.
so she did go in front of the Board of Ed in January and said, we're gonna implement a policy that's gonna be rolled out in September. So she's on the record, kind of having committed, you know, it's May and there's not been a plan that's been rolled out, like, and they've kind of, I do appreciate that the timing of that rollout is a little bit strategic, like you don't wanna mess things up at the end of the year, you don't wanna give people too much time to say no and whatever, so they think they are kind of playing it a little close to the chest on that, but that is the expectation, is that there will be a policy in the fall, and it better include the seniors, that's my big focus.
Peter, the other thing I've heard is when I have one in high school, is the concern that, you know, students walk into school every day and they face the threat of, you know, a school shooting. It's something that, you know, they've grown up with, they know about it, it's stressful to them, and to not have a device when they're in a lockdown situation or they're in a school shooting situation. I think that for parents, again, I hear a lot of concern about that. I'm not making an argument, I'm just saying that's what I've heard about from parents.
So I would direct everyone, and I would be happy to share it through Mary with this group. I wrote an op-ed after the incident this fall at the high school, the fake school shooting that we had. Is everyone aware of that?
Yes. Where did this
There was a kid who posted on Instagram or Snapchat or I don't know.
Did they finally got Kate?
Yes, and she's like a sweet, normal girl. She just wrote something glib. She said, like, I wore my sweater inside out and didn't realize I'm gonna shoot up the school. And the FBI picked it up, and the Darien police was there within minutes. Now, unfortunately, they were there in like full SWAT gear, people on the roof, etc. But guess what? Kids on their phones, videotaping, Mom, there's guys on the roof in SWAT gear, texting, there's a shooter at the school, blah, blah, blah. And it was pandemonium. Now, the district worked beautifully well, and I said in this op-ed, like, hats off to Ellen Dunn, like, they handled it by textbook. Like, the police were there, they quickly assessed that there was no threat, and they communicated, I don't know, maybe within 15 or 20 minutes to everyone. This happened, everyone is safe, it's over. But that 15 minutes, you had 1 million kids on their phones, sending videos, sending pictures, and it is not helpful. You're creating chaos, you are tying up phone lines that first responders should be working on. And imagine if there had been a shooter, do you want your kids listening to a responsible adult or texting you? I mean, it is, I think, every parent's, it's your worst nightmare, but I would want my kid to know that they are loved and listen to their teacher and not be on their phone. So I think the answer is that all the data shows that you're much safer not being on a device. But that's a hard thing. It's like trying to tell someone who's afraid of flying, like, it's the safest form of travel. Like, it's hard to get your head around it, but it is true.
My daughter was texting what was happening, and
same, so was
her
mine.
friends were texting their parents, and a lot of the parents were like, we're getting in the car, we're gonna drive to the school. And the last thing that the
First responders
need is
need.
a bunch of parents
Absolutely. Yet another problem.
Yeah.
So it actually, and all the first responders say the phones are the worst thing that can happen in the schools. Like it doesn't help anybody. And the jamming up of lines and just kids not paying attention to responsible adults and busy texting or taking videos or whatever. So, or God forbid, hiding in a closet and a phone goes off or something. I mean, it's not helpful at all. So that is definitely pushback, the safety thing. I think parents complain about logistics. How am I gonna, if tennis practice gets canceled, how do I know to pick my kid up? I don't know, we figured it out for 50 years. They'll message boards, whatever. I mean, there are ways to manage the logistics. And what is the other common pushback?
But I imagine all those things will be discussed kind of as this continues to be formalized, debated, and implemented, right? You know, because parent feedback, from what I understand, has kind of been an essential part in deciding what is right size, and is kind of why pro or con was part of the argument of why it was delayed in the high school to begin with, from what I understand, is let's gather more data, let's figure this out, let's start with K through 8, see how it goes, you know, report back, which is kind of what we're in the midst of. And so I think with the transition, it'll be a nice time to kind of hone in on it. I hope everyone will, you know, honor their promise that they made to implement something in the high school in the fall and share all of this, but I think we just thought with this being such an important issue for so many families, and I mean, I have younger children, so I'm biased, I think everybody's very tuned into this and is aware of how it's impacting their kids now that we know this, but I think just for the benefit of this committee, rather than it be piecemeal, just to let everybody know what's kind of going on from the parent community and advocacy perspective, and then of course, as you talk to people in town, you know, see what you hear from your constituents and so on and so forth, but we just wanted to make sure the dotted line continued as the new superintendent is implemented, so.
Where did this op-ed appear?
In the Darien Times.
Mary, this was great.
Thank you for giving me time to talk about it. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you for what you're doing, it's so good.
Thank you all, I really appreciate the time. Okay, I'll scoot out and let you guys.
And I think we're almost there, guys. The last item to talk about here, maybe is our June meeting is the same night now as the rescheduled RTM meeting, because the graduation was rescheduled to June 16th, so now the RTM moved their meeting to June 9th, which was also our committee meeting for the month of June. I don't know if anyone would consider meeting before the RTM, or should we try to pick a totally different night? I don't know what thoughts or preferences are about that. I think once we get, I do not think we should try to plan a meeting after June 16th, because that's school break. Yeah, that's.
Selfishly, I'm voting no. But it's for the group.
A lot to discuss.
No,
So
we don't.
if we met before, it would be like 20 minutes?
Yeah, like we could try and do like a 7 p.m. meeting on the 9th.
Okay.
Does anyone think that would be?
I can do that.
How
Makes
long?
sense.
Is that okay? Okay.
This is not just about
Meeting usually in
It's
the-
here.
Yeah.
In the auditorium?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've never been to those.
Okay. Yeah,
it's gonna
it's
be a
just
deer
right
meeting.
here. It's just right here, so we could get in, we could get in a little.
It's like his budget meeting next week, that's Sheila's first. I know.
Just throw me in, I'll just like.
Just vote.
We'll try it. We'll try doing 7 p.m. then on the 9th.
Okay.
I'll send out a revised. And again, okay, so there's that. And then, does anyone have any other business they want to discuss today?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I was wondering, what do we do with these binders? Do
Oh,
we
I
take
know.
them
That is a really good
back?
question.
Do we take them back and they
Yes.
can reuse the
Yes,
tabs
that's
and
what
the
they do.
binders and
Yep.
like, you know? It
That's
seems
exactly-
very wasteful.
That's exactly what you do.
Oh, great,
Can
okay.
we take it to
Yeah.
just the same place where we picked them up?
Yep.
What is it for?
I'll take care of it.
What is that for?
They give you the budget.
It's the budget.
For the budget.
You'll figure it out
You have
next
our
year.
money?
You might want to resign from the committee.
You don't have to have a hard copy, although I think in the first month and a half, it was really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because of my age, but, yeah.
For so many years, we suggested that it could be just printed on paper
Yeah,
and to save money. I mean, that's always our job, to save money, and these things cost
yeah.
a lot, and the
More than
time
you would think.
spent for people putting them together.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But they do reuse everything.
Oh, good.
You know, I'll send an email, and I'll circle back on like if there's a day or time or a preference to
Who
where we
puts
do
those
that,
together?
okay?
Just
The Board of
look at
Ed?
Yeah?
No,
Just
the
go
people
in,
who work
go
in the
into
office.
the other side, and they'll just put
There's
it
so
on
many
the
of them.
desk.
Okay.
How many of them do they make?
Just
Just one for us?
They do in January.
Like, are we done in June?
I think
Is that, are we
I think
done,
you have
is
to
that our
say if
last
you want
RTM
one
meeting
this
until,
Yeah,
like-
yeah, until
Unless something
September.
special comes up.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, there,
Because it's happened before.
Last year, we have
Yeah.
been called back, so I think during COVID times, we had to meet to do something, right?
I remember meeting in the summer because I was not here.
And then, I don't anticipate it, but it has happened.
Okay.
And Mary Nevin and I learned how to do a hybrid meeting.
Oh, yeah, we did.
The thing here, so if we ever,
Cool.
Yeah.
if there does need to be a summertime meeting, we can probably do it with, this. So,
Does
yeah.
this committee vote at all to approve a new superintendent? Like whatever candidate, it's just handled by the Board of Ed?
There's a
Even
search
though the
committee.
money,
Well, I mean, the way it was done before, back in the dark ages when I was on the Board of Ed, there was a subcommittee of the Board of Ed that did the superintendent search. And then it came to the Board of Ed, but for the whole Board of Ed to go out, I mean, we drove to Long Island to interview somebody, and we drove upstate New York not upstate, but into New York to interview somebody. So it's not something a large group can do until, we were eliminating people and for everybody to go up there.
well, I wasn't sure with the salary component, like if it flows through finance or ultimately down to us. All good.
We do have to review the administrator's contract when that comes through. I don't know, guys, did we just do that or is it coming up? I can't remember, but.
I was
Yeah,
on
we
the
did.
committee
Yeah.
as a representing the school parents when a superintendent was being considered. So, and I read how much they're gonna do and have input from so many people. And it's a difficult job,
It is a difficult job.
very, very. And it isn't that the new one's gonna be here real soon.
So yes, then I guess for like summertime, like the board goes on their retreat and they don't make any voting decisions on that retreat, right? Like there's nothing they're voting on.
Only if it's an executive session, they can vote. But the things that, there's a very set number of things that you have to meet in order to vote in an executive session.
Okay.
It has to be personnel or, Janet, what else? There are 2 or 3 things that you can do in executive
Maybe
session.
security stuff.
Pardon?
Maybe security
Schools,
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, because you're saying the interim superintendent will not, you're saying,
We had an interim for months, not a year.
Can't even remember.
Well,
because that's what they're looking for now, right?
yeah,
Is
that's hard to
interim.
find.
And it is hard to find, sure.
Yeah,
We're assuming that interim will not be
right.
on board by summer session.
I bet
like-
they're working pretty hard at it.
Yeah, okay. Because what do we do then in September when school's in session, there's no superintendent or
Well,
no
the interim stays
interim?
until the
Yeah.
new one comes.
I'll
But what if we don't have the interim?
I'll call Joel.
We'll
and ask her
definitely,
what
we'll have
the-
an interim. There you
Yeah,
go.
I'll find out, I'll report back, I'm not sure.
Okay,
But I'll ask, because
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What don't you know?
Well, but the timing or like how it's gonna work, so.
It can't be predicted, I mean, they're looking for, I bet this.
No, I just
Fair
mean,
point.
I just mean
Yeah.
if there's any, they've done it a few times before. In fact, they've done it several times here in the last 10 years, so.
Yes,
I think
yes, that's why we.
They
know
might
how
have a
hard
good,
it is.
they might have an idea. Yeah, we don't keep them that long.
It's an
Did I
interesting
say
process
I
that they're
was
looking
done?
for the permanent person and the interim person at the same time.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And my assumption is that once they find the interim, most likely this interim will stay on as, No?
not-
No.
no?
No.
Oh, interesting.
Not necessarily.
There's like professional interim,
Oh, really?
superintendents floating all over
Are they
the
like
country.
almost retired kind
Yeah,
of people?
I don't know. I'm just saying that
Yeah,
it's a niche job.
yeah.
That's what it was last time.
Yeah.
We had that
Also,
situation, it was
yeah.
a person who, I think was coming back from retirement
Yeah,
Yeah.
Before Dr. Addley was found? or
before,
what?
Yeah.
before
Oh,
Dr.
gotcha,
Addley,
okay.
yeah.
he wrote the best updates, remember his letters that he would send out?
I remember
They were
him.
awesome. Yeah, they were really good.
But I do think for
Maybe he'll come back
for the
again.
no, and
Where is he?
I know we're gonna meet before Dr. Addley is done, but maybe it's worth to talk briefly about him, because maybe
I was
we
just
wanna
gonna ask,
include-
what's the real reason?
Maybe when I include something a little bit about, at least what I think, in that note on the budget, right? I mean, Dr. Addley has been here six years, I think he did a great job. I think he pursued his vision. I think his communication skills were very good with the community. I mean, every concert I've been to, everywhere, he's always been there.
Yeah.
From elementary school to high school. Managing Board of Education is not easy. And I think he did a good job. I think he had a vision on how he wants to pursue it. I think he was very rational with the budgets. I mean, we saw it this year, right? I mean, you know, we may not like the idea, but he came at 6% budget. That's what he wanted. He wanted to pursue his vision, and we, you know, we told him you gotta do 4 to 5, so he did. You know, so it's a loss for you know, I think for the district, and I always enjoy my communications with him personally. So I wish him all the best.
That's nice. Thank you.
So this is the biggest job of Board of Education. I know, you know, we want to talk about whether the fees should be paid or not, and these long discussions, but the real number one job is to pick the right guy who
Yeah.
stays here 6 to 10 years, who moves to town as part of the community, you know, who doesn't see it as a stepping stone to international school in Harlem.
Yeah.
So this is what I need to, and to your point, I think it's changed the process, because when I saw that they were setting up this special committee, all of them are on the subcommittee. At least from what I saw, wasn't there a special meeting recently? And they
There
said,
was, it was on a Monday.
so they're all gonna be participating in selection?
But
Immediately.
what I was saying is that if we were going to
Yeah,
interview somebody
Yeah.
in Long Island,
yeah.
that interview was to see whether or not the whole committee,
Would
the whole
consider it.
board.
Got it,
Because not everybody has the time
right.
to drive to Long Island for the day and tour a school.
Makes sense.
So, yes, everybody on the Board of Ed, at least in my experience, is involved in it. But if you have to drive to, we wanted to see the schools.
Yes.
When we were getting down towards the end, we wanted to, when we could, we wanted to go and see the school itself and see what we could see about it. But that was just our year.
Right.
Anyone else? You're good? Okay, if you have any comments or if there's something you forgot to express, please send me an email. I'll try and send out my draft of my notes before Monday's budget meeting. But I don't have any, I mean, it's just gonna be very straightforward, I think, so. Let me know, you know where to reach me, and if anyone would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I was going to say, there's an article in the paper today about schools stopping YouTubing in Greenwich, Norwalk,
That's right.
Westport, and it's already in place.
What did you say?
To stop what?
YouTube.
Watching YouTube.
Because they watch them pretty often, like
Oh,
before,
it's like-
before the
it's
bus
very
comes, my
articulate.
children watch it.
It's
both of their
bizarre to
You mean
me.
Yeah.
building it for the
Daughter is
schools?
Yeah.
9th grade,
Yeah.
similar to.
But how do they implement that?
It's really.
Some technician that knows how to do it.
It
It was a very, very long article,
Yeah.
very long article.
Is it blocked?
About how school districts are not allowing
Hey.
YouTube.
Yes, it is, but
They use it.
then when he gets home, then.
Right, right,
So I
but
think
you're
that's-
not gonna be able to.
But I mean, you know,
Area.
I mean, as a teacher there at the school lot,
Are serving to
the
say.
kids are
Do the
still watching
teachers
it
use it?
sometimes. Sometimes the teachers use it.
They get around it.
So, I mean, but as a teacher, as a substitute teacher, there have been times I've had to show YouTube stuff to the kids. So,
I know, well, that's the hypocrisy of it, is that they
So,
are
I mean, it's-
on
it's a learning
technology, and then we're
tool.
gonna take their technology, it's like.
It's a learning tool, I guess.
I know, it could be.
It could be.
It could be.
I mean, they've been vetted, so they're vetted.
All right.
Also,
Motion to adjourn?
yeah.
I see Dan. I see Dan. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you on Monday.
Don't tell me